Welcome to the Simply Authentic podcast with Angie and Tanya, where we strive to inspire, empower, and challenge you to be your most authentic self. We'll talk a little real estate and interview entrepreneurs, business and community leaders, and hear inspiring stories.
Welcome back to the Simply Authentic podcast. I'm Angie Mullings.
And I'm Tanya Murfin. So gratitude and thankfulness. Think about those two words for a second. It's that time of year when everyone slows down a bit to think about how thankful they are. In this episode, we wanted to take a deep dive on gratitude and thankfulness. We did a little research to determine if there is a difference or if they are the same. We found some interesting scientific studies on the topic, which we will cover here in a little bit, and we're excited to share that with you today.
I am so excited about this episode because I think that our listeners are going to get some really great information out of it. Because while similar, thankfulness and gratefulness are two different things. When you're thankful, you're more transactional. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tanya, for bringing me my soda today. Mm-hmm. You get thanked at the grocery store. It's very transactional. Mm-hmm. Grateful is this more deep feeling that stays with you. It resonates with you, and you have, you know when it's different. Mm-hmm. You really do, because it's a feeling that you have. So I want to start this episode with a story about our producers here at Simply Authentic. Mm-hmm. A couple of weeks ago, I was asked to do a series of interviews, and when I was on a Zoom meeting talking to the people who are going to be doing this handling this process, let's say, they were telling me things like, you can't sit by a window and you can't have just a blank wall behind you and you can't do this and you got to do this and all of those things. And it was freaking me out. Mm-hmm. I can talk, the interviews were on real estate. I can talk all day about real estate.
Sure.
It's my job. I know it. I was not nervous at all about the interviews themselves. What was making me anxious and nervous is the way they were presenting what I needed to do on my end that was more technical. And I am not technical.
Well, and this is kind of, producing anything like this, and it was kind of similar to that, is a bigger deal than what you visualize it being.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. I said yes to an interview. I didn't say yes to, I'll be technically correct and I'll have all the props and everything that I need. Right? Right. So not until, let's see, this was on a Friday that I was having this conversation and they were telling me all these things that I need. And I was sweating. I was breaking. Yeah, it was making me very anxious. Sure. So I get off the Zoom meeting and I call Kate and I ask her if I tell her what I need and she, Kate's always calm. So she was very good to kind of talk me off a ledge. And she said, because to accomplish all the things they wanted me to accomplish, I knew I couldn't do this at home. I can't do this in my office that's full of windows. Right. The lighting's not going to be right. And they were so specific about the lighting. So I asked if I could come over and she, generously said yes, that they would work with me. So I came over. It was a Friday afternoon. I'm sure they had other things going on and they had to deal with me and my people there were 4 production specialists on the other side of this Zoom call. And it was a Friday. I had a hat on. I had black and white on. And they were saying things like, you're not going to wear black and white, are you? There's too much contrast. Are you going to wear a hat because you have a shadow over your face? I mean, it was things like that, I'm just like, oh, give me a break. And then, the sound wasn't right or the video wasn't right. And thank God I had Jordan and Kate here because I don't know what I would have done without them. And then, come to find out they wanted us all here at 7:30 the following Monday morning. And my interviews didn't start until, I think, 8:30. And so, but we had to be here early and get set up and make sure everything looked just right again. And I just left here on Monday thinking, oh, my God, I am so truly, profoundly grateful that I have these people that are here to help me.
Right.
So that is an example of, I couldn't, just saying thank you was not enough. I really felt this deep swell of gratitude for them.
Yeah. And that's a great story and a great example of how sometimes you maybe, you get yourself in a situation like this, and you really haven't planned on the particulars turning out the way that they did. And that could happen with, a lunch meeting. Right. But yeah, I think it's a great example of how grateful you can be for someone's kind act of service, which is what they did. They took their time to help.
Yeah.
So thank you, guys.
Yeah.
We love you. So, Angie, as we get into talking about gratitude, I, of course, get out my Webster's dictionary, aka Google, and they send me to Webster's dictionary. And so I want to give the definition of two things, and then you're going to give the definition of one thing. Gratitude is defined as the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness. So that is gratitude. Grateful, so being grateful, it's a warm and deep appreciation for kindness received. So you receive it and you're grateful. Gratitude can also be returned, right? And I love that.
Reciprocal.
Yeah. So what are you defining?
What am I defining? Well, we're going to introduce a new word to you today, and it is toxic gratitude. Yeah. So when I go to Webster's, aka Google, I find toxic gratitude, and toxic gratitude is when you're implementing self-gaslighting. So
Say that again.
So simply put, toxic gratitude is when you're implementing self-gaslighting. So
self-gaslighting. Okay, you kind of have to get that in your brain.
Yeah, you do. And I think it's not something, we're going to give some examples of what could be toxic gratitude. And I think it'll be interesting for our listeners to understand, because it's not a word I was familiar with or a term I was familiar with.
Me neither. And how we got introduced to this, we listened to the Mel Robbins podcast. And she has a great podcast on gratitude and thankfulness, I think is maybe what it's called.
Yeah.
So look that up, because you'll be able to hear her talk about it kind of at a different level. So we're going to highlight some of that. But toxic gratitude is manipulating other people or only focusing on the good thing without acknowledging the reality of it. And deep appreciation includes you recognizing the reality of something.
Right.
So there, when we get into talking about toxic gratitude, there are 6 examples that Mel gave. So we're going to go over those just so our listeners understand what this meaning is.
Right.
So number 1, you only use gratitude to focus on what is going well in your life, but you completely ignore the big messes happening around you.
Right.
So social media.
Yes, for sure.
Great example.
You post only the great things, and you're not really true in showing your authentic self, because you're only focusing on the really good things. But it also is detrimental to your processing of things. Right?
Agree. Well, and then you might see that person posting great stuff about their life, that everything's perfect, but when you actually see them, they're doing nothing but complaining.
Right.
So you can't connect the dots.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're ignoring the big messes in their lives, so they're not facing those big messes some of the times. Not head on the way that they should.
Yeah, living very surface.
Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So number 2, using gratitude to manipulate or shame other people. I like that example or that definition portion, because it's used in parenting a lot. And when she talks about it, she uses some examples. But for myself, I can see myself saying to my girls something like, well, it is good that you did that. However, you probably should think about this. and not just maybe recognizing what they did good. You're shaming them into something in addition to.
Right.
And I'm guilty of that. I think probably most parents are, because we want to see the best out of our children, especially, but you are always trying to teach them more, right? So that's easily done as a parent.
Right. I could see that happening in brokerages too. I might say to my agents, you should be grateful that I have provided, whatever it is I've provided, this marketing plan or whatever.
Yes.
So by saying you should be grateful, I'm shaming them into being grateful.
Exactly.
And that's not a good way to use the word grateful.
No, it's not. Gratitude becomes a justification for staying stuck where you are. So, classic example, I hate my job, but I'm so grateful for the paycheck.
Right.
So you're willing to stay stuck somewhere because it provides you what you need, but you hate every second of it.
Right. So maybe a good example of how to turn that around is I hate my job, and I am grateful the opportunities that might come my way, because I am looking for new opportunities.
Yes.
A new job. So
I'm going to use this job as a stepping stone to propel myself to where I really want to be.
Right.
Yeah. And
so acknowledging that but not saying I'm grateful for a paycheck, because that limits you. That's limiting to you.
Exactly.
When you have higher aspirations, you need to be grateful for any opportunities that are going to come your way, so that you can move on and get out of the job that you don't really like.
Yes. And that could be examples for marriages and friendships.
Yes.
And there's a lot of other examples there that you're content, you're really miserable, but I'm grateful I have somebody to sleep beside me every night. Well, that's an excuse.
Right.
Excuse me. All right, number 4, a way to escape uncomfortable emotions. So one of the examples that Mel gave was somebody passes away, and you say, well, I'm so grateful they're no longer suffering. We've all said that, all of us, everybody. If you claim you haven't, you're lying. We have all said that. And it's because we're uncomfortable. It's because we don't know
what to say.
How to express our gratitude for that person being in our life, other than, I'm glad they're not suffering anymore. So she pointed out, and I like this, that it's critical to feel your grief. So take that opportunity to feel your grief and to express your grief to that person. You don't necessarily have to turn it into, but I'm glad they're no longer suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel your feelings.
Yes.
Feel your emotions. Take the time to process, because that's what we all need to do when we lose a loved one or a friend or whatever. We just need to take the time to process.
Yeah. And she did make a point, and I thought this was important to say. Research shows the more you talk about your uncomfortable feelings, the quicker they pass.
Right.
And she talked about grief in that statement as well, that you probably, or it's been studied that you deal with your grief better the more you sit in those feelings.
Right.
And the more you actually deal with your grief.
Right.
So, and again, that's applicable to many things. Number 5, when you start pushing positivity on other people because you don't know what to say. Okay, so that's kind of similar to number 4.
Yeah, this one really hits home with me, because I've had this, we probably all have experienced it. So you're going through
For sure.
something, whether it's a breakup or bankruptcy or any number of things, and you're trying to express yourself to a friend, and they say, well, just be grateful for the time you had, or just be grateful for, or you're going to beat this if it's a disease, or you're going to come out of this stronger. It's like they're not appreciating where you are and acknowledging the feelings that you have.
Yeah.
And honestly, it would be better to say, you know what, that really sucks. That sucks. I'm going to be here for you. How can I help?
Yes.
That kind of thing
Yep.
would be a better response than, the alternative there.
Exactly. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us because, again, like the previous example, that's how we deal with uncomfortable. We go to the positive, and I don't know. I don't know what it is inside of us that makes us immediately go to, oh, let's talk positive about you for a second, even though you just told me you have cancer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And I have heard from people with both of these examples, friends of mine that have said, you know, a diagnosis is it feels better for me with the diagnosis for you to say that sucks and not say, oh my gosh, you're going to beat this. And, you know, of course we all hope that they beat it.
Sure.
There's, you know, you're not going to walk up to somebody and them say, well, gosh, I hope this takes you down. You know, they're not going to say that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think we all need to be in a better practice of practicing a different response.
Yes.
And is that always easy for that person to be accepting of that because maybe they just found out yesterday? No. But there's probably not a great response from
Probably
them
not.
at this point.
But yeah, just at least acknowledge where they are and how they're feeling and let them have those feelings.
Yeah.
And then just be there.
Yeah, exactly. And number 6, the last one of the toxic gratitude that we spread, is you use it as a way to knock yourself down. So you have worked really hard to get to where you're at. And instead of saying, I have worked my ass off to get to where I am and I deserve this award, you're making excuses as to why you don't deserve it or why maybe someone else should have gotten the award.
Right.
Just owning, I've worked really hard to earn this space and I'm killing it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
see a lot of people because we're humble, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're trained. It's kind of trained that when you
Agreed.
get an award, you're saying, I'm so grateful for this and that and the other thing. But
Agreed.
honestly, just, own it, as you said. And that doesn't mean that you have to be braggart about it or, that kind of thing. But
Right.
I think you can own it and just accept the fact that, you've worked hard. You've worked hard. You've put in the time and you've achieved something. And, you can be grateful for the experience that you're having at that moment. And I think that's what people are thankful for. They're thankful for that feeling of accomplishment that, I've made it. I'm
Yes.
being given this award because I've done something. I've
Yes.
worked my ass off to get here. But now I can be grateful for this feeling inside that I've achieved it.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of wraps up the toxic gratitude that we wanted to talk about. And there are some good tips in there. One of the bigger points is when others are in a struggle, don't use gratitude to force positivity.
Yeah.
So that's something for us all to think about. And truly, I think it takes self-reflection of how you're going to deal with that person that's diagnosed in the future, the person that is getting divorced, the person who lost a loved one.
Yeah.
We really have to think about the best way to respond
Exactly.
and not
Exactly.
making it toxic.
Yeah. So now we're going to highlight that we, in researching this, we found some articles. I love that there's a science behind this, that there's a science behind how gratitude affects you mentally, physically, how it interacts with your relationships. I have a gratitude practice. I've been doing this for a while. I have a gratitude journal, and there's lots of ways to have a gratitude practice. You can, maybe you've got a habit of the first thing in the morning you get up and you think of 3 things that you're thankful for.
Yes.
That you have gratitude for, or that's your practice at night that you do that. Or maybe you have a habit of sending out grateful letters, that you're sending out letters or cards to people who you have gratitude towards for something that they did for you. So there's lots of ways to practice gratitude to make sure it's part of your everyday, just part of your being.
Yeah.
If you make it that way, then what we're going to talk about in terms of the science of gratitude, you're going to understand. You're going to see some great benefits from that. And
so my practice is, and has been for many years now, is I do wake up and one of the first things that I start doing, and I don't record them in a gratitude journal, and that's another way of doing it, either when you get out of bed or as you're going to bed. So the last things you think about are what you're grateful for. In the mornings, I am praying and saying what I'm grateful for while I'm in the shower. So I've got, a few minutes there that I'm just thinking about those things. And there's a lot of science that goes back to your mindset and being grateful, acting as if you're grateful and repeating things that you're grateful for to yourself or in your journal. It's healthy for you. It really puts you in a good mindset. It starts your day out right.
I'll tell you what it does for me. It puts me in a place of peace.
Yes.
So if I and like I said, I usually journal at the end of the day because I think about the things because a lot of times we're going about our day and I have a plan for my day. I'm a planner.
Yeah.
I want to know, but then maybe things just go totally haywire and I get home and I'm rushed now. I got to get this done. I need to get this done. I need to prepare for tomorrow. And it's my way of grounding at the end of the day. I can sit down and I will tell you, I have had to work hard at writing things down, but it helps me to write things down. Yep. There are times when I will just say a little prayer and I'll think about the things that I'm grateful for. But what it does is it gives me peace at the end of the day. It helps me sleep better.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
now
sure
I've tried to turn my mind off. I'm focusing on the things that I'm so grateful for, and that could be anything for the rain that now I don't have to go water flowers.
That's right.
I can, and again, that's more of a thankful thing, but I really do feel those things when I start to really focus on those things that I'm grateful for. It does kind of change my whole mood.
It does. Yeah, it can be mood changing. So let's get to the science here. And this is a article that we found online, and we can give credit to, I probably can't see it, Angie.
That's okay.
Misty Pratt.
Yes, she was the writer of the article.
Yes.
But in the study that was done by Dr. Robert Emmons, and he is a professor of psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. And basically, there's been a lot of research done on this in the last couple of years. And there's a growing body of evidence that gratitude has measurable benefits for just about every area of your life. We've already talked about how it's mood altering. It can be good for your mindset, your state of mind, and it could also help your physical health.
Absolutely.
So we're going to share some of those things.
Yeah, so they say in here, research published in the last decade has shown that grateful people, those who have a trait gratitude, have fewer common health complaints, such as headaches, digestion issues, respiratory infections, runny noses, dizziness, and sleep problems. It appears that practicing gratitude could also help to alleviate those pesky health problems. So, gosh, if I could have fewer headaches a month by being grateful, wouldn't you maybe change some of your habits and maybe or start some new ones?
Yeah.
Right?
For someone who doesn't like to, I don't take any kind of medication. I don't believe in doing that. If I can do something like this is absolutely in my something that I would do.
Yeah, and it also says psychological changes associated with gratitude are typically a reduction in blood pressure, an increase in vagal tone, which then it goes into a lot of medical words and definitions, but it can help slow your heart rate, stimulate digestion, and contribute to overall relaxation, which we all need a big dose of these days, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing it says is that when you have a gratitude practice, it can help you feel more satisfied in life and actually boost your self-esteem. So that's according to that research as well.
Yep.
And really how those practices work. So, Tanya, you were talking about how the physical, what happens in your physical body, how it can help with the headaches and the, immune system. It can be an immune system booster. All those things can help you from a physical standpoint. I thought this part was interesting, that it talks about strengthening your positive recall versus your negative recall. So in other words, people are more cognitively aware of their headwinds or the barriers they face than their tailwinds, which is the benefits they receive. So by paying more attention to our tailwinds, the benefits that we receive, the studies have shown that we can accentuate the feelings of happiness, optimism, and positive emotion. So when you focus on the benefit versus what the barrier is, that's what they're saying, that it really does help with your positive attitude. You know, Tanya, I know a lot of people who have a negative vibe. They really, a lot of things have happened to them, or maybe some people I know that not everything, it's not something that is really mounted up and over time and a lot of negative has happened to them. We all have a disposition that we're born with. I believe this. I know there's some science behind that, but we either fall into that positive or negative category. So I feel like it's easier for me as a positive person, someone with a lot of optimism, it's easier for me to understand the tailwind. If I'm confronted with something that I know is going to be a challenge, but I can easily pick out what the benefit is going to be, that's easy for me. But I know people that they look at something negatively, they look at a challenge and they look at it negatively, and they can't see beyond what the challenge is, right? So they can't see what's going to happen on the other side and what benefit that's going to be. Right. They can't get past the challenge.
Yeah. Well, and as you're speaking of the people that you know, I'm sitting here thinking about the people that I know, both on the negative and the positive side of this. Personality-wise, unfortunately, when the person who you're dealing with in whatever situation, when they can't find the positive, and so yes, we all have stuff coming at us that's not great, right? But if you can't find the positive, this person only finds the negative, and then that person is typically hard to be around on a long-term basis, because their negative response, because that's their personality, their negative response to most things, and the people that I'm thinking of, most things have a negative response. It's rare that you catch them with some new problem or some new challenge, and their response is, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. It's all negative. And that spreads.
It does.
Negativism spreads like a virus. And it can sometimes be mood altering for a place of business or for a whole friendship group. Right. And we all have people that we encounter in our lives, whether it be a friend or coworker